Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Alex Dixon of Studio 722, and I'm kicking off a new series called How I Mix This. Today I'm going to show you a song by Driven Astray called Not Alone. It's this month's duelingmixes.com song. Great community, great place to go with a new song every month to practice your mixing, honing your skills, and get feedback from everyone else in the community. Anyway, let's continue and start on listening to see what the song sounds like. That's not part of it. Anyway, you get the idea of how the song sounds. It's a hard rock song. It was great fun to mix overall. Pretty much after I got my my organization out of the way, track naming, track colors, I pretty much left the names as they are, and I organized them by most important and grouped. Red is drums, orange is bass, yellow is guitars, green is vocals, and the blue is pretty much just a couple little effects that pop up like once in the song. Anyway, I also have each groups going to their own sort of group. I have drums group, drum overheads going to their own group. I have bass, guitars, vocals, background vocals isn't used. Effects is for those two little ones, and I didn't really do anything with it. Miscellaneous not being used. Now, screams, this was an interesting one, because if you look at the green tracks here, if you look right there and at those four tracks, those are the four tracks I have to go into the scream group. Anyway, I'll solo these and I'll show you which ones. The calling to take you home. Anyway, that's with all the vocal effects. Anyway, but that's what they sound like processed. Anyway, those four tracks are going to their own group called the Screams group. But anyway, pretty much everything's in its own little set of groups. Pretty much we're going to start off going pretty much from left to right. You know, pretty much, like I said, drums, bass, guitars, vocals, and effects. As you can see, I did a little bit of processing on individual tracks, but not much. I did most of my processing on the groups because I do sort of a top-down mixing approach. Pretty much work on the groups first, then the individual tracks. I don't touch the faders of the groups until after I've done all my mixing and I'm going for a final level balance of overall. Anyway, let's start with the drums. The main drum group. Okay, as you can see, there's not a whole heck of a lot going on. I have isotope ozone. I have isotope ozone after all the red 2 processing. I have it pulling out some highs along with the red 2 pulling out some lows. I guess it brings down the overall level of the track, but I got it to sound the way I want. The compressor not really doing much except bringing up some makeup gain, and probably adding a little bit of overall color to it. But anyway, this is the final drum sound. You know, pulled out about 5 dBs of 120, a little bit of about 5 or 6 dBs of 140, and then about 11 or 12K. I pulled out 2 or 3 dBs with wide Q on the mid bands, and I'm adding just a tad of air, about 2 dBs of air, a little bit around 13K and up, with that EQ. Here's what it sounds like unprocessed. Now here's what it sounds like processed. Alright, now I'm going to move on to the drum overhead. Well, actually, that's what it sounds processed. And here's what it sounds like in the mix. Sorry about that. Anyway, that's what it sounds like in the mix. Now we're going to move on to the drum overheads, which I have extremely processed. A lot of compression going on, bunch of EQ work, adding some lows, removing a little bit of harshness and highs, using the transient shaper to give a little more attack to the drums. Let's see. Okay, pretty much no compression on with ozone, but I'm going to turn off all the processing, and then I'm going to bring it in one by one. That way you get a little bit more accurate sound of what I was going for. Anyway, I have isotope ozone. Well, here's the raw drum overhead. And there's ozone. And then I did something really interesting. I added the soft tube saturation knob. Kind of gave it a little bit more life and grit. And then I compressed it to get a little more gain. And even it out a little bit. And now this is where stuff gets interesting. I have it compressed like crazy. Although I have it not compressing all of the attack right away, but it gives a really good punchy, heavy compression sound, which I really like. The Rough Rider is a pretty fun plugin to work with. Got a ratio of over 1,000, of up to 1,001. So, and then I brought in some EQ and pulled out a little bit of air to kind of give it that. And then I have another instance of ozone, pulling out a little more high end. And here's what the all the drums sound like together. Here's what they sound like in the mix. Alright, now let's move on to the bass. The bass was kind of a tricky one because the first couple versions I did of this mix, the bass was way too heavy. Uh, so I had to pull it back quite a bit. But anyway, here's what the bass sounds like right now. As you can see, I did a bunch of EQ work. I took out some of the high highs, boosted some mids, and took out just a little bit of the lows. That's what it sounds like without the EQ of Ozone and the saturation knob on. And the saturation knob gave it a lot of bite. I'll show you. You know, as you can see, the saturation knob gave it a ton of character. You know, as you can see, I got it boosted pretty well, and it's just about overloading. Anyway, in the mix.
They're coming for you. Are you ready to go now? They're coming between us. They're calling to take you home.
Okay, did you hear the screams just there? Alright. I pretty much did the same thing with the saturation knob. Let's see.
Ready to go now.
You know, I did a lot with the saturation knob.
They're calling to take you home.
You know, did a lot with the saturation knob, and I compressed it. I didn't smash it too hard, apparently, but I did about a 1 second release with a fast attack, about 19 threshold, and roughly a 2.5 to 1 ratio. So, you know, I'm getting a little bit of compression there to kind of even it out so it doesn't fly all over the place. Anyway, that's the screams. Now let's move on to the guitars. The guitars I didn't do too much to, except for the EQ, because the guitars had a really good tone already. That's what they sound like unprocessed, with no EQ. That's the EQ. I kind of boosted the mids and took out a little bit of low, because, like I said, I'm having the bass do just about all the low-end work. And I'm also doing some compression with a 3-to-1 ratio, about 30 millisecond attack, so it's not too rough. You know, that's pretty much all the processing on the guitars. Here's what it sounds like in the mix. Alright, now for the vocals. The vocals were a pretty tricky beast all their own. I mean, I had to do quite a bit of processing to it. Let's see.
Shed your disguise. Look the other way.
Yeah.
Just close your eyes.
First I did some EQ, add a little bit of air, a little bit of low mids, wide Q on the low mids, just a little bit of mids, and then I'm just smashing the crap out of it with the Red 3 compressor. About a 30 dB threshold, auto release, fast attack, a little bit of makeup gain, and then on the group I'm doing some de-essing, a little bit of high pass filter on the low lows, and a little bit of just extra compression of a 4-to-1 ratio, just to kind of smooth it out a little more. I also did a little more EQ on some of the individual tracks. Like the Red 2, I pulled out some of the high end, about 4 to 5 dBs overall on average. Wide Q. And then I took it over into Ozone and I did some more de-essing. and I pulled out a lot of the honkiness that was around here and cut out some of the low lows and boosted some of the highs after the red 2 to kind of give it a little bit of balance. I don't know how to describe it. I'll pretty much show you what that did. Let's see. Let's unsolo that. And where are you? Here we are.
Now, this won't be okay. Just take my hand. I can lead the way. We'll make it through.
That's the vocal process through the vocal bus, without any processing on the individual track. Anyway, here's what it sounds like with the red 2 processing.
I've been here all along. What can I do?
As you can see, it muffled up a little bit.
I can see
and then I took out a lot of the low lows and some of the honkiness.
Yeah, I can feel it slipping away.
And added a lot of that high end back in. And let's see, what are these? Okay, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you?
Coming for you, are you ready to go now?
Didn't do a whole lot of processing on these. Just remove some low end and added a little bit of high on one. In the mix. And on this vocal, I removed some mids, almost about 6 dB of it. Let's see.
They're coming between us, but I can't let you go.
I dulled them up just a little bit to kind of make it fit a little better. But yeah, pretty much after all my static mix and everything, I was pretty much constantly reworking it as I mixed, because mixing is, you know, it's a balancing act. So, you know, you gotta continuously balance as you do everything else. But yeah, I used, I think, a total of 32 plugins. I also used a little bit of a reverb. Whoops. Oh, we don't want to sell it. This is what the reverb sounds like. It's a little bit of a short room. It's a studio. Well, large dark studio, so it's pretty much a preset within Revelation. I only have the vocals and the main drums going to that reverb. I have a delay, but I didn't use it. And if you look on the stereo bus, I have Ozone doing some EQ work. That's what it sounds like without it. And as you can see, it added quite a bit. You know, I balanced it out a little better. Pretty much don't be afraid to work on your master bus from time to time. You know, you don't want to do like all your processing on it, but, you know, don't be afraid to do a little bit of an EQ to kind of get an overall scope tone, I guess you could say. You know, just to kind of balance out the overall levels. I also have my VU meter right here, the stereo tools. I have it calibrated to -16. Pretty much when it hits 0, it's at -16 dB RMS. But it's a handy little tool. And as you can see, it's not even peaking anywhere near it, so it's a very quiet mix. You I have I tend to mix pretty quietly and master pretty loud. My mastering I usually keep at around -10. So yeah. But it gets me a lot of dynamic range in the end. Um but yeah, that's pretty much how I went about mixing this. Oh, I also want to show you. I also did a little bit of processing on the kick drums. I added some low end to the kick, and also a bunch of high end, which gave it this sound. Without it, with it, and then I also have the sub kick, which is just adding a bunch of low end, about 65 hertz. For me, that 60 hertz area is a very key area. It's pretty much where the most of the thump of a kick drum is. It's like that's where the boom is. Pretty much where the kick hits you in the chest. I guess you could say I'm kind of mixing from an EDM point of view, but because I produce my own EDM stuff, but I haven't done that in a while. But anyway, but yeah, overall, that's pretty much how I mixed it. If you look at my panning, I did subtle panning mostly, to kind of spread things out without doing like a dual mono thing. I'm not really that hard pressed with LCR panning. The only thing I ever like hard pan is the overheads. Overheads you really gotta just pan wide. But I gave everything its own little bit of space in the spectrum, so anyway, yeah, that's how I mix this. Have a blessed day, guys. Bye.